On October 7th, we were all horrifically reminded of the hatred that some people have towards the Jewish people. I'm not going to go political today, but just going to share what I learned in my research and ask some questions that hopefully will give us pause. Now, the anti-Semitism didn't stop there in Palestine. It was on display throughout the world, various places, even back here in our own country, on university and college campuses. Some leaders of those institutions were asked, would you condemn speech calling for the killing of Jews? And some of those leaders responded, that's contextual. So tell me, in what context is it appropriate to call for the killing of a group of people just for being who they are? I have to confess that I'm historically challenged. I think people like Jeff took all the history genes and didn't leave much for some of the rest of us. But I'll do the best I can to paint an accurate picture based on my research. It seems the Jewish people have had a hard time staying in their land. You may remember about a severe famine they had, and so they went down to Egypt to get food, but it ended up being enslaved by the Egyptians and were there for 400 years. And then back in their land, at different times they were attacked by the Syrians, by the Babylonians, and many taken away to foreign lands. And then, prior to the time that Christ walked this earth, Rome took over the land of Palestine. The Rome Jewish wars started in the year 66 and went on for about 70 years. During that time, the Jewish people were abused, enslaved, and many of them expelled from the land, and others left just to escape the situation. Before Jeff gave a speech about pogroms, I had never heard of the word. But if you look up that word, it's described as a riot to incite the destruction or to expel a group of people from a certain place based on their ethnicity or religious beliefs, typically applied to Jews. Throughout Europe, there were many, many massacres, as Jeff talked about in his speech. In Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, repeated pogroms in the 1600s. And later on in Odessa, Ukraine, in Moldova, and throughout all these pogroms, tens of thousands of people were killed. But of course, we can't stop there. We have to remember the worst of all, the Holocaust, where 6 million Jews were systematically killed by the Nazis. And remember, this isn't just a number, but each one of those was a brother, a son, a child, a father, a mother. But when you dehumanize someone, that is the next step. And I wasn't aware of how prevalent that thought process was. Take, for example, Patton, a US general, whose job is to go into and stop Germany from doing such things as the atrocities they were committing towards the Jewish people. But one time he said, Harrison and his ilk think that the displaced person is a human being, which he is not. And that particularly applies to the Jews, who are lower than animals. Now, you and I, living there in Europe in this time frame, think about it. What would we do? Fortunately, there were people like Theodor Herzl who had a vision. During his life, he was born in 1860 in Hungary, but during his life, he saw anti-Semitism going on all around. It was during his lifetime that the Dreyfus Affair took place, which in France, where Jewish officer was falsely accused of treason and only many years later was exonerated. He realized the urgency of a solution. And his solution was a political one where they would reestablish the state of Israel back in the land of Palestine. In 1896, he published his seminal work called The Jewish State, where he outlines how this could happen. His vision was that the people of Israel would go back there and they would be a hub of education, of culture, of progress. They would be safe there, but they would be able to contribute to the betterment of humanity. The following year convened the first Zionist Congress, where the Zionist organization was formed with a purpose of reestablishing themselves back in the land of Palestine. In 1917, Britain issued the Balfour Declaration supporting the concept of the establishment of the Jewish people back in the land of Israel. After World War I, between then and World War II, people were just trying to escape and get out of the land where they were being so badly persecuted. I'll give you an example. The ship St. Louis, where 900 passengers had gotten their papers to be able to go immigrate to Cuba, hopefully being able then to immigrate to the United States. They arrived in Cuba and were denied entry. They tried the United States, denied entry. They also went to Canada, denied entry. They eventually had to return back to Europe, and some were taken back in, but 254 of those passengers were killed in the Holocaust. After World War I, the League of Nations designated Britain to administer Palestine. But because of the Arab Revolt, Britain issued a new paper called the White Paper, where they severely limited the immigration of Jews to their homeland. In 1947, the UN proposed a two-state solution for Palestine. There would be an Arab state and a Jewish state. That proposal was accepted by the Jewish leadership. But as so many peace proposals since that time, it was denied by the Arab leaders. The following year, 1948, David Ben-Gurion declared an independent state of Israel. And that's when the Arab-Jewish war started right at that time. And this fledgling country was able to win against 5 hostile neighbors and against all odds. The Jews have made many mistakes. The government's made many mistakes since that time, living alongside and governing the area there. So in 2005, due to world pressure, they forcibly removed all of their citizens, and the law enforcement from the Gaza Strip said, okay, you live peacefully on your side of the wall, we'll live peacefully on our side of the wall. That was the plan. But 18 years later, we found out what had been going on during the last 2 decades, planning for the destruction of the people of Israel. You and I are those Jews again. What do we do?